In association with Get a Tax Rebate, 1895 Sports, Mesa Vienna Aesthetics, CDX Security.
Okay, welcome to another episode of the Oddball Woody Show. Thanks for listening. And we've got a great guest this week. I'm going to start off because over the last few weeks I've been telling stories and giving like statistics about guests, but I'm going to start bringing guests in with a little bit of a backstory. So this guest this week, the reason I wanted to ask him on is because I've got three people. If I look back on my career, I'd say the most inspirational people in my career, I would say, was Andy, in no particular order, by the way, Andy Farrell, Adrian Morley, and Jamie Peacock. And the reason I say that is because in 2002, I got picked for England train-on squad, 30 guys, and there was 25 guys at the end of it who was going to get selected. Unfortunately, I was one of the 5 that didn't make it. And it absolutely ruined me. I was absolutely gutted because I really wanted a shot at playing against Australia for the England A team with, a lot of my friends. And so I set myself a challenge in 2003 that I was going to give the coaches absolutely no excuse whatsoever to pick me for the England A squad in 2003. That was my challenge. So I dedicated myself to my rugby, my skills, my fitness, my nutrition. I did loads of extras away from training. Fast forward 12 months, got to 2003 as a 20-year-old. I didn't get a call from John Keir. I got a call from David Waite, who was at the time the Great Britain coach, and said that I'm not part of the England A squad, but I'm actually going to Marbella. And I'm getting ready for a free series with Australia, which obviously that totally exceeded my expectations of what I was going to achieve at the end of the year. Long story short, go into camp and you've got the likes of Andy Farrell, Jamie Peacock and Adrian Morley, and you've got a very, very strong leadership and professional group of players. And it absolutely sideswiped me because as though I had a high level of myself in terms of levels of professionalism, I could see that I was still way behind in terms of what I needed to do to achieve and to stay and maintain at that level of competition. So I don't know whether I've never said that to Jamie, and I've never really explained it in that much depth. But Jamie, playing with him and obviously playing against him for the majority of my career has been a massive, massive inspiration. So welcome on the show, Jamie, and thanks for coming on, mate.
Thanks, Woody, and thanks for saying that. It's really, really nice to hear that, and it's good to hear you got some good inspiration there with Faz and Moz. And for me, mate, I always respect you because you're a player who made the most out of your ability. You always trained really hard and played really hard. And they're the ones the players I kind of respected the most in my career.
Yeah, I sit here now and look back on my career and said, you know what, I was never the best player, but I just made the most. I probably exceeded my expectations in terms of what I wanted to achieve. But, I mean, players like yourself, getting to know you on a personal level and being involved with you. And, the Great Britain camps that I was involved in, you get quite intimate with players and you see what they're really about. We all have opinions of different players off the field, on the field, and then when we meet them off the field, they're completely different. But again, you didn't have it all your own way from the start of your career. So if we just take you back to when you went to Australia to apply your trade, just explain how that came about, Jamie.
Yeah, you're right. I think my kind of journey to the top was a different one, and I've got builders in the house. I don't know if you can hear that. Sorry, mate. I'll try and move and answer this. This is on the run, mate. So yeah, my journey with going to Australia started with Matthew Elliott. He said to me, you're not quite ready to be in the first team yet. And he said, look, you can go to the reserves, right? You can go and be in the reserves. or you can go to Dewsbury on loan, or you can go to Australia. So I was like, 19 years old. It's no brainer, right? Dewsbury's a great place. The Burgess are from there. One of the bedrocks of the league. But to go in 1998 to go 12,000 miles away to Australia. I mean, I as a kid, I'd only ever been to Spain once. The rest of my time I've been in like Scarborough and Wales. So I was like, yeah, I'll do it. But then I think I got out there, and I think, it's really challenging for me out there. I got there, I was supposed to have a job. That fell through because this company went bust, sponsoring the team. And it was challenging, 12,000 miles away. The world's a different place now to what it was back then. It was really hard to contact anybody. Matty Elliott said he'd ring me once a week, run me twice in like 7 months out there, because the Bulls were going for a big challenge in 98. But what it taught me out there, long-winded story here, is I think when I got out there, I changed from, an amateur player to a professional player, because I understood, the technicalities of the game. When you're in an amateur game, you just play it, don't you? And I understand, like they call it, the X's and O's. But when I got out there, I met kind of Greg Mackey, the ex-Warrington and Hull scrum half. He was the coach, and he taught me so much about the mental side of the game. But what he taught me more than anything is that the mental side of the game is so important, that ability to be resilient, be tough. And that kind of suited my personality. So going out there was a big challenge. I was out there for 8 months. I was sleeping on people's floor because I didn't have enough money for rent, living on super noodles and stuff. But I think that being out there for that 8 months, first of all, a couple of things taught me about being, the mental side of the game so important. It's also important in top elite sport. But also, when I came back, I thought, this is it. This is my last chance shot at making it as a professional player. So a little bit like what you spoke about when you didn't make it in the England A team. I just give it everything I've got. And from that, my career kind of started, Woody.
Do you think, as a youngster, did you have that? Would you say you were sort of naturally gifted with this mental aspect and this drive, or did you really have to work on it?
Yeah. So I would say that I wasn't probably as naturally physically skilled and talent as other players when I was younger, but certainly the mental side of it, I think I was. I think I enjoyed training hard. I enjoyed pushing myself, and I think I kind of understood what it was to be resilient and to bounce back from stuff. And I think that comes through being a bit self-aware of how you can kind of improve. And yeah, I think it was in me from a kind of early age, and it's a skill that I had to kind of hone or improve at due to if I wanted to make it a rugby league.
So I suppose there's an element to that. I think it's great when you talk about the awareness as well of sort of knowing what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. And I suppose, if in relation to my own career, I was pretty much the same, not the most skillful guy on the team in the amateurs. But in terms of like the toughness and the aggression, I knew that I had to probably just maximise the most out of that.
Yeah, that's right. I think the best players understand what your strengths are and use them. And I think it's the way to remain confident as a player is kind of using your strengths and understanding what to do with that.
So coming back from Australia, obviously you came back and then you made your debut in 2009. So just tell us a little bit about your debut and how that came about. And then from there, because obviously from there, mate, you excelled. I mean, 1999, and then all of a sudden 2003 you were Man of Steel. So within 4 years you were Man of Steel and you were a treble winner. But tell us about how your debut came about.
Yeah, so my debut was I come back in 1998. I spent 4 games at Featherstone on loan, and I realised like this is absolutely the last chance saloon for me as a player if I'm going to make it. And that pre-season, I just trained so hard. In 1999, I trained hard anyway, but this was it. This was as good as I could be. Everything, everything. Give it absolutely everything. And then in the before my debut, I think we had the reserve grades, and I reckon that I won. We had 14 games. I won man of the match in 12 of the games. Right, I was just trying to get in the team. Then eventually, I got my chance, and I got to play against Wakefield for about 25 minutes until stadium. Remember thinking just how quick it was, and it was just so good to make my debut though for the first time. Worked so hard for it, and then from there was in and out of the team really for the next kind of 20 or so games. And a big thing happened to me, Muddy, at the end of that season was that I played in the playoff game. We beat Saints 44-4 to go straight into the grand final, and I was in the team on the bench, and I knew I'd have to play well to get in the team for the final. I thought I played well, give us an 8, 9 out of 10. But then in the week of the leading up to grand final, I got dropped for somebody else coming back into the team, and I'll be honest, I was that pissed off with it first. You don't handle things too well first couple of days. Drinking probably a bit too much, but then by the time got to like Monday or Tuesday after the grand final, I just thought, you know what, I'm going to train that hard again this year, right? I might have made my debut, but the next final week we get in, right? The coach is going to have no choice to put me in. I'm going to be playing that well. So again, I had that fire in my belly for all the pre-season, and then we got through to Murrayfield 2000 and got picked in the final. Then, so off the back of that kind of set the scene. And then I think what you realise is, like yourself, Buddy, you enjoy training, and I like training hard. But then when if I train harder and harder, then I've got more chance of being in the team. It kind of suits you, right? And that kind of worked for me then.
Mm. Because obviously you're surrounded by, Bradford at that time, there was a wrecking force in Super League, and there was sort of the pinnacle of rugby league throughout, from commercial to on the field. Who was sort of the inspirations for you at that time?
It's a good question, that would. I think I was really lucky that I came into a team with a lot of players who were probably not the most talented, but really hard working. So like Brian McDermott, Mike Forshaw, Bernard Dwyer. Jimmy Laws were really talented, but he was an hard worker too. And for me, being in and around them made me realise that, again, it's just another sign that hard work can take you a long way here. And it created an environment, when Bernard, you say Bernard played less than 60 minutes, he'd be on the rower on Monday mornings, trying to flog himself. And I think that ability to work hard and work harder than everybody else, I think it's been handed down a long time in rugby league. I reckon there was someone when Bernard Dwyer was 18, might have done it at Saints, and then someone before him. And I think, I reckon there's been an history in rugby league that there's always 3 or 4 players in a team want to work harder than anybody else, and realise, because if you're fitter and stronger than other people, then you've more chance of being in the team.
Yeah, and it's, do you know what, like in the modern day now as well, there's that much sports science, and it's sort of pulled back a little bit from some players, isn't it? So what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, like I'd always be arguing with the league's Rhino staff, because I'm just doing my own training and saying, no, you need to be ready. I'm like, I know my body, I know what I need to do, and if I want to train hard, I want to train hard. And I think the sports science creates a bit of soft mentality, because in a game you can't kind of go, oh, well, this is getting hard, I'm going to stop here. Can you? You've got to learn to push yourself beyond what you possibly can do. And I think, I don't think it's no surprise that Melbourne have been and continue to be one of the best teams, because their training is supposed to be, incredible. They push people to their absolute limits, because I think that's what it's all about. And I think, I just think, training hard and being fit. No one's ever turned around and said, "Oh, that player's too fit, let's not pick him." No one's ever said that, have they?
Yeah.
So I think there's a place for sports science, but I think at times you need to push beyond that. And I think it's about developing that. I'll digress a bit. That when we were in the World Cup in 2017 with Wayne Bennett, we had our pre-season camp, in Perth, and he took them on this the SAS, the equivalent of the Australian SAS, They got them doing these drills, all the lads doing these drills, and they must have been doing them for about an hour, like brutalised them. But then they went on this mission in teams on sand dunes, carrying all pieces of equipment for about the next 4 hours. And it was brutal, us as staff, we had to join in the last couple of hours. And I was hungover me because I thought I'm not doing it the next day, team manager. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that Wayne did it on purpose because he wanted the group to come together and take them through something that you don't need any sports science, but it was absolutely brutal. So they knew they could stand together as a team, and it's no coincidence, I don't think, that team then was an ankle tap away from beating Australia in the World Cup because they'd been through that really tough moment together that needs fuck all sports science.
Mate, I agree, and you know what? I've sort of got both sides of the argument here because with having my background in doing a Masters of Science in strength and conditioning, I see that side of it, but I think rugby league's quite unique because even though there's a sports science element to it and there's loads of studies with GPS data and sprinting data and everything else, at the end of the day, you need a load of tough fuckers on your team. You need Marines. SAS soldiers, Navy SEALs, and unfortunately, the sports science it will drive that element out. And like you said, sometimes you've got to just push your body. You can't stop because a sports science study says if you run over 800 meters in high speed, you're fucking more likely to get an injury. I think sometimes there's an element of sacrificing an injury for the training session.
Yeah, I'm with you. I agree as well. I agree 100%. And think about it. How many times in a season do you go into a game feeling 100%? You never, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the same with that. I think you've got to learn the psychological benefits you get from sometimes, not all times, pushing past where you're supposed to go. Sports science turn you like you said, into a tough fucker who can tough it out when it gets brutal, when it gets intense in games, and bring everybody else with you. And there is, Woody, I'm not being a Luddite. I'm not saying there's no place for sports science. I think it needs to enhance what you do, but it doesn't need to kind of stop that resilience element of it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm listening a lot to David Goggins at the minute.
Yeah,
I'm sure you've heard of him. I mean, he's madness. I mean, he talks about mental ability, but if I was involved in sport now, my main focus and research would be in mindset. It would be completely in mindset because, it helps if you're one of the fittest guys on the team, if you're the strongest, the powerful, the fattest. But in rugby league, for me, this is the most powerful tool, the mindset. And actually, you can be the fittest guy on the team in training, but it doesn't necessarily transfer over sometimes into a game.
No, it doesn't. No, you're right. And it's, I think the mentally tough guys are the guys when it gets dark and intense and tough and you kind of thrive in it. You get excited by being in it. The tougher it gets, the more you want to play and be part of that game. Yeah, the David Goggins, me and a mate of ours, we did that 48 challenge, 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. It's pretty good. It's intense, but what really shone through for me is that I honestly didn't find it that hard, and I think that comes from the rugby background. Like it kind of came through to me when we were all doing it. I thought it's difficult, right? But it's not. I'm like, do you know what I mean? And I'm not like trying to. At the time, I thought I'm not putting it on the group, but the more I think back about it, the more I think. Yeah, and I think just you don't realise being in that cauldron of rugby league for so long, you just kind of develop that resilience above and beyond what most people normally have.
Yeah, I think rugby league, it's a very unique sport in terms of mentality. You've got to train like a strongman, a sprinter, an athlete, a marathon runner. You've got to train like an Olympian. You've got to sort of condense every single sport. Then have the mentality, and a lot of things I think get normalised when you're involved in rugby league. And like you say, you look at that challenge from David Goggins, and I know a lot of my friends will look at it and they go, "Wow, this is hard. Look at this, 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours." And like you say, you look at it and you think that's not that fucking hard, really, on the grand schemes of things. Physically, that's not hard. Playing over 30 games of Super League every single week, sometimes 2 games in space of like 4 or 5 days, that is a fucking challenge. So running for 48 hours, it's nothing, I don't think, to a rugby league player.
Yeah, I think it just makes it easier. It just makes it what you've been through makes it easier. And I do think that challenge though for a rugby team professionally would be a great one to put people through, because I don't think all players are like me and you, would. You know, I think some players would kind of like, well, this is quite hard and difficult. I don't want to do it. You know.
How do you create though? Do you think you can change people's mentality and create a stronger mindset, or do you think it's like a temporary thing that you can create? So you think, you know what, I can probably motivate him and get a good season out of him, or 2 seasons, or do you think people can change like to a permanent aspect?
I think everyone's different, and I think across that spectrum, I think, yeah, you can have the people who will buy in for a season, 2 seasons, then they'll go somewhere else and they'll slip back to who they are. Or then you can have the people who don't know what they don't know, and they get into it, they love it, and they change fundamentally forever. I think people are a mix. I don't think you can say with that, well, there's just one type of person and that's how it's going to work, would it? I think it's a case of getting them in that environment. And if they live up to those values while they're in that environment, that's great. And some people will change forever, and some people just slip back into old ways when they get out. For me, right, it's about life's about making either a tough decision or an easy decision, right? And in rugby league, the more you make tough decisions, the easier the game is. But the more easy decisions you make, the tougher the game is. That's a little bit like life, though, as well. And I think you can put somebody in that environment where they have to make lots and lots of tough decisions. And I think with people, if they're in there enough and want it enough, they change who they are and they make more tough decisions than easy ones. But some people will revert back.
Yeah, 100%, mate. And you know what? It is. Look, there's a lot of analogies in rugby league that I use in my work environment now. You know, like when people come to work with like a really dirty and unmessy van, you know, I compare that to me going to training with a pair of rugby boots that are dirty from the day before and having all my kit still full of sludge and turning up to training like that. It's exactly the same. And, you know, just to touch on what you said there, you know, you can do the hard things in rugby league, which for argument's sake, it could be, you know, putting pressure on a kick chase. That, even though that's a tough thing to do when you've just made like 3 or 4 tackles,
yeah,
in essence, it's the easiest option as well. It gives you the easier outcome.
Yeah, it does.
If that makes sense. You know, the kick's not as good. So in fact, you actually gain more yards by doing that. So, and you're right. I think that's the same in I'm finding that in life and transitioning into a working ability as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, you know, that I think generally over time, if you can apply that mindset, then you will be successful, because the vast majority of people will do it at some point, but they won't do it consistently. And I think being able to make those decisions consistently stand you out.
Yeah. And I'll tell you one thing, what epitomises UJP is when we had Jamie Jones came on and we was chatting, and he explained when your father was ill in hospital and you put your hand up to play against Wigan. And, you know, like, I don't know how many players would do that today with that mentality. Can you just tell us a little bit of a background on that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, so my dad was diagnosed in 24th of November 2011 with stage 4 lung cancer. You know, got told he had 3 months left to live, but he fought it. You know, he was a fighter, had loads of chemo, but then we get into September, beginning of September, first week of September 2013, so 22 months later, and he's in the hospice, and I'm with him most of the week in the hospice, because you can tell he's definitely on his way out. And then so I didn't really train, you know, slept in there in the hospice, didn't really eat properly. And then on the Thursday, we were going to play Wigan on the Thursday night, and he slipped into a coma. It's called like a death rattle you get when you get lung cancer. They make this horrible noise. And I was thinking to myself, right, what am I going to do here? Do I play? You know, it's a really important game for us, top of the league against Wigan away. And then I was thinking about it. Then I just thought, fuck it, I'm playing. So I thought my dad would want me to play. So I just drove over. I missed the bus, so I drove over team bus. But then on the bus, I think this is the difference for me, is that on the car on the way there, I thought to myself, I'm not going here just to make up numbers, right? If I'm doing this, I'm coming here because I'm going to play well. Because what's the point in me doing this if I'm not going to come here and play well? Basically, it's a fucking waste of my time and the team's time. I'm taking the piss. So got there and I felt awful, like really empty as a person. It's a weird feeling. But then, probably had one of my best games I've played all year, for the team, and we ended up winning, and kind of taught me a lesson that it's great to prepare properly. I love preparing properly and getting everything right, but mentally you don't need to if you just can be fucking tough. And I got back the Friday and he passed away on the Friday, so thankfully I didn't miss him passing away, but just kind of taught me a couple of things. And the big one, I always think that it's a little bit like when you play injured as a player. There's players who play injured and they're a passenger. So you might as well not bloody play. But if you're going to play and you're injured, well, you make a difference then. You do what you normally do to the team, and that's what I kind of thought that day with it as well.
So would you get pissed off? Like, I know as a player, like when players want to play with a dead leg, and it's like, it's a fucking dead leg, mate, you know what I mean? And I would always try and grasp every opportunity to play in a game. You've got yourself who's in a position there where your father's in hospital and you still choose to play. It means so much to you, doesn't it? The game, the game and the succeeding, really.
Yeah, it's a couple of things to that. I suppose when I was younger, mid-20s, I would get pissed off a bit, right? But I think as you get older, you become a bit more well-rounded. And I think, for me, I think, right, well, I'm not going to get pissed off, but I'm going to lead by example. So if I've got an injury, I'm going to play and play well, right? And quite often, a lot of the guys who, how to say this without... So if a lot of guys who perhaps, say if someone's on 30, 40 grand a year, that's the reason why they're on 30, 40 grand a year, because they get a dead leg and don't play. But for the guys who get paid that extra more, with that comes a price, and the price you've got to pay is you've got to turn up. If you're a leader in the team, when you are injured and busted, that's the price you have to pay with that.
So what would you say was your inspiration then, your driving force to do that, to be in that, put yourself in that position?
I just wanted, I don't know, I just wanted to, when I played, as I got older, I knew what I wanted to play as well as I possibly could. I wanted to push things as hard as possibly could. And I think in rugby league, you have to have a mental toughness, you have to be resilient. And I think if someone leads by example doing that, then people follow. And then they'll believe your words a bit more. So you can't be saying to people when you're in you're defending your line for the fourth back-to-back set, you need to get it right, give people it unless you're doing it yourself. And I think that's for me. You lead by setting good examples, and if you set an example that you can play busted, then other people will do. And I just think it's a good example to set.
Yeah, and you do set a good example. I always remember when we played against you once. I think it was at the Alamo Jones. It was a league game, but and Tony Smith was coaching us at Warrington at the time, and he just said spot JP, and I think he made 50 tackles, did every kick chase, and scored a try. So it was like, well, next game we'll just run at fucking Kev Sinfield like we normally do, because I think we made him angry, and that actually motivated him more to do that.
It did piss me off, mate, because I thought, you're not taking my fun out of the game here by running at me, so I'm still going to get involved in this game. Don't worry about that. I knew it was coming, and I thought, right, all right then, okay, it's a challenge.
In terms of coaching, who do you think's been probably the most inspirational or most influential coach in your career?
I think. This will sound like sit on the fence to start with, but it's going to lead to the right answer. I've been really lucky in my career that I've had all the way through. I've had some great coaches and people you can pick a bit off all the way. So you've got your Brian Smith or your Matt Elliott to do with your technical side of the game. Nobby was more of a people person, and then Tony Smith was great for me at my time. Bluey was. David Waite was awesome, wasn't he, as well? Loved David Waite. But then I suppose the most well-rounded and the most I get most out of was Brian Mack, really. I think Brian Mack was the best for me. I think he was good technically. He was honest with you, but also he was really good at motivating players and getting that extra bit, which you need in rugby league, don't you? Because basically, it's going to war without people dying. Sporting. For me, it's a sporting version of going to war. When you play rugby league each week, and I think because of that. You need someone who can motivate you a bit above and beyond that human spirit and values about what you fucking all stand for. And I think Macca for me was the best of it. But that suited my personality. For other people, it might not have been the same, would it?
Yeah. Do you know what? I have this argument with like half-backs who I've played with in the past and backs, and they come into the game and they try and make it technical about getting to his inside shoulder, passing the ball. But I always argue that how comes the most successful coaches in rugby league over the last 10 years have been forwards? So you've got Paul Anderson, who won the league with Huddersfield.
Yeah.
You've got Sean Wayne, who's won 4 grand finals and Challenge Cups. You've got Brian McDermott, who's one of the most successful coaches. You've got Danny Ward at London, who's doing a great job as well. So, and for me, that's proof in the pudding that rugby league it's not. I'm not saying they're not technical coaches by all means, but what I'm saying is that I think forwards have a great understanding of the game because they understand how tough it's got to be and the tough stuff that you've got to do to win a game.
Yeah, for sure. You're right, Woody. And I think you need a good technical knowledge of the game. But let's say you're an head coach and your technical knowledge isn't as great. Well, that's when you employ an halfback to be your assistant coach to cover all that up and make sure the team's on point with that. But then, how hard you run and how hard you tackle is just so important every week, isn't it? You can have all the best game plan in the world. If you don't want to run hard and tackle hard, you ain't going to win.
Yeah.
At Get a Tax Rebate, we make it easy for you or your business to claim back thousands of pounds in tax. Most people, like Jane and Philip, don't realise that they are owed money from HMRC, so they never claim. All you need to do is fill out a simple form on our website and we'll do the rest. It's that simple. We've also helped business owners claim back millions of pounds in research and development R&D tax credits. So if you're working in a business or own one, contact us today to see if we can help you claim back tax and improve your cash flow. Get a Tax Rebate, your tax refund concierge.
$18.95 Sports and State of Mind, the ultimate lineup.
Macy Vienna Aesthetics based in Wigan. For all your wrinkle treatments, dermal fillers, lip enhancement, energy boost injections, immune boost injections. Please visit us on Facebook or Instagram at Macy Vienna Aesthetics.
CDX Security, proudly supporting rugby league.
What would you say would contribute to the biggest success in like players that you've played with? And again, I think it's quite a broad question that, because there's so many individual characters. I'm sure Kev Sinfield's qualities are different from, say, yourself. But what would you're working at the minute, you're doing your flagship program, your well-being program, and you're a keynote speaker, so you're doing a lot of this stuff. But in terms of your experience, what would be like the biggest contributions to success?
It's a good question, Woody. I think there's a few things really. I think for me, it's good, strong work ethic. I think you can, in all walks of life, you can outwork people. And work ethic is a choice, right? It's not a talent, it's work ethic. It's just a choice that you can outwork people. I also think as well, self-reflection's key. I think being very self-aware and being understand, how you need to improve and what your strengths are. And then I think having a good set of values that you fucking stick by for me are important. You know who you are as a person, and you know what you're about, and you know what things you stand for and what things you disagree with. I just think they're key. If you look at all the good players, I think they've got that in them. That kind of, it's like belligerence of, you know, this is who I am, this is how I stand for it, and I think that kind of works in life as well. And for me, then, just I think as well having a good understanding of people, and I think you get that from being in a team environment, don't you? I think you know, as a like, let's say like an athlete, or track and field athlete, you really work in the 4x100s, work in a team, but you've seen how awful they can be at that. Is that they don't have that understanding of how you to be a good leader in rugby league. You need to work with people. You need to be able to understand people, and I think that's key as well. That ability to understand others.
Yeah, again, it's, you know, there's a lot of stuff that I'm looking at now and over the last 5 or 6 years, and I so wish, hindsight's a great thing, but I wish I knew a lot of this stuff when I was playing rugby. You know, like, I'm not saying I was a bad communicator, you know, I felt like I was a good team player, but the communication side and knowing that there's different personalities and different, you know, different people respond differently to a kick up arse, or they need an arm put in around them, and, you know, the language that you use.
I think that, though, now it's the job of a good coach is to make you as a player self-aware of that. You know, like, so let's say, you know, as a coach now, and I think a lot are doing that. And I think one of the reasons why the Rhinos have been successful is they've gone on this journey of doing that, making sure that all players begin to understand their own personalities, but understand that everybody else is different. And, you know, bollocking one person won't get the best out of you. Need to put an arm around some people, like, you know, Woody, or you need to fire some people, don't you? You know, if I said to you in a game, you won't be able to do that, you prove me wrong, right? You know, but I've said that to someone else, they might go, he's probably right, I can't do that. You know, it's about working that out.
Yeah, and like, away from your rugby, you've done your business master's degree as well, haven't you?
Yeah, in sports business. I mean, that was really good to do that, you know, getting outside, just to look at things differently through an academic lens rather than, you know, a sporting or authentic lens, because we've kind of lived our life lessons through sport, but this is a far more academic, obviously, with it being a master's. So yeah, it was good doing that. It was difficult, but yeah.
Are you an academic person, like, naturally, or is it something where you've had to make the most out of?
No, you know what I like? I'm sharp, you know, in terms of, like, you know, maths and English and that. But the hardest thing about doing the masters, while I left school at 16 and learning how to write the right way, was really challenging for me to do that. But yeah, I love reading. Woody, I'm a big believer in reading. I think reading's just so important. You just learn so much from reading. It's just such a undervalued skill.
Yeah, I'm saying reading. I do read. I read a lot more now than I ever have, but I like listening to audiobooks because I travel quite a lot. But what you reading at the minute?
What I've got at the moment, I've got so I've got my little pile of books on here. So I'm on these two. Surrounded by idiots for you, Woody. And then I've been recommended that one.
Almanac of Naivety.
So this guy's from like an angel group, you know, of investors, and he's been hugely successful, but he's just got some traits.
Is that Tim Ferriss? Does it say that? Tim Ferriss?
Yeah, Tim Ferriss recommended. So I listened to a podcast of his. It was about 2 hours long, and I got recommended this. So I'm about to embark on that and just finish this one.
Yeah.
And I've got this one coming. I've got loads of books. Tiny Habits. I think this is going to be a good one as well. So
yeah. So a lot of the stuff is all mindset stuff that you're reading at the minute, then.
Yeah, for sure it is. Yeah, it's all about that. And with you, Woody, our mindset makes such a big difference to what we're doing, particularly now. You know, we're not. I'm not in a physical line of work, right? I'm in about, you know, my line of business is trying to get the best out of people, and through that, it's about the mind.
Yeah. Right. I'll ask you a question, but in terms of creating a culture now, we'll use rugby league as an example because we're both ex-rugby league players, but this could apply in business as well. But how do you go about changing a culture in a business or in a rugby league team to suit the environment. So let's pick rugby, for example. How do you create that culture, winning mentality and work ethic?
So yeah, I think first of all you've got to get the group together and agree on a set of values that they're going to live by, and I don't think you can steer it, but you can't force it onto people what they are, because they've got to believe that they own these values. But generally, people will come up with the right thing, and you're able to steer it. So you might have a meeting, get people to agree on 3 or 4 values. I think, and it might be honesty, hard work. I don't know, and maybe honesty, hard work, and just do the right thing, okay? And then once you've got them, then you need to look at what the behaviours are around that. What does hard work look like? What does honesty look like? What does do the right thing look like? So you define them. And then for me, to create that culture, you've got to measure it all the time. You can't just come up with this plan and fucking leave it. You've got to measure it week to week. But then you've got to get people who are the leaders to lead by example. They've got to be the best at it within the organisation. So within a team, if you've got all hard work, honesty, and do the right thing, you've 5 kind of key players. They need to be the best at doing that, and then that'll just go through everybody else through example. So you need words to start with, but then it has to be done by example and by people doing it and living it.
Would you say though that leaders are your best performers, necessarily your best performers, or do they not have to be your best performers?
For me, I had with England. I thought as a leader, I had to be one of the best players there, and I couldn't just be in for because I've been captain. So one of the reasons I retired from playing for England, because I thought I'm not one of the best players anymore here, right? And there's better players in it than me, so I'm going to step down as captain, and then from England. So I think certainly in rugby league, you need to be one of the best performers, but you can be a leader in terms of buying into the values, so you could be one of the best performers in terms of what the values look like, not the guy who scores all the tries and kicks all the goals, but you could be. So let me get this right. So as a leader in the team, you're not saying you have to be one of the best performers in terms of tries and goals and that, right? But you have to be one of the best performers in terms of your values, the values you set. So, for example, like you could be the guy who plays 40, 50 minutes a week, but you when you play, you give everything according to your values, then you're a leader in that team because you're leading by example,
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, that makes complete sense. And what's transit, you just said there that you retired from English rugby because you didn't feel like you was one of the best players anymore. But how did you deal with the transition from rugby player to then transitioning over? Because first of all, you went through Hull KR, didn't you?
Yeah. You know what? Phil Clark said something to me once, which is good advice. Is when you retire, you don't know what you're going to be good at, so don't worry if whatever you do, it don't work out for you the first time round. So. I went into that OKR role and it was just all consuming. It was like 80, 100 hours a week. You never stop thinking about it. And it was just too much, too intense. And it still, what's the word? It still grates me a bit that we were like fucking 90 seconds away from staying up and it'd been seen as the right thing, And considering all the adversity we had that year, it'd been a hell of a success. But, that sport is brutal, right? But for me, the thing that has helped me retire, Woody, quite, I believe, successfully, and not a problem, is that, right, I don't view myself as a rugby player, right? I view myself as somebody who played rugby. And I think the people who really struggle with retirement view themselves as a rugby player. So when they're not a rugby player anymore, they don't have an identity. Whereas I played rugby. I wasn't a rugby player. I was somebody who played the game. So when I stopped playing the game, I was still me, and I had to work out something else to go and do. And I think that kind of mentality helped me. And I think some of it should be kind of driven into the young lads. And I think my background helped that because up until 19, I wasn't a professional rugby league player. I was doing my own thing. And then I became a professional rugby league player, whereas now the kids, they're the best in school, and then they sign from school to 16, and all they ever know is themselves. Is that they look in the mirror and see, Joe Smith, rugby player. They don't see Joe Smith, somebody who plays rugby, and that's the biggest difference, I think.
Yeah. Do you know what? I've just written that down actually, and I think it is good advice that you don't know what you're going to be good at when you finish playing rugby. And I officially retired in 2015, and it's coming on to be 6 years at the end of the year. But I've sort of gone like that. I've been like, I've stayed in the sort of the same industry, but I'm sort of dipping my toe in a lot of different things, and I'm experimenting. I'm not scared to. One thing that I'll never do is I'll never just have a job for the sake of having a job.
Yeah.
I want to love what I do because I believe life's too short. And I think a lot of that comes down to my dad suddenly passing away at the age of 44. So with me being 39 now, I'm like, if I die tomorrow, I want to make sure that I am living my life to the full. So I sort of dipped in and out. And
that was in 2002, right? That wasn't it? Was that 2002?
2004, yeah.
Was it? Yeah, right.
Yeah, and that's probably why my mentality is like it is. I'm probably I'm stubborn anyway, but I want to enjoy what I do. But that's a great bit of advice because it's a daunting place when you come, and it's simple. It's just it's 6 words, but it's so hard when you come away from the game because you don't know what you're good at.
Yeah. Well, I thought I always wanted to be, I didn't want to be a coach, I wanted to be an administrator. But then I realised an administrator it's not for me because I'm not a regulation man. I'm an entrepreneur, right? I've got an entrepreneurial, I'm always trying to innovate and come up with new ideas. And I think it runs in my family. So being a rugby league administrator is far away as you can remove from being an entrepreneur, which is kind of what I am now. Like I innovate. You're the same. You're an entrepreneur. You set up a business, and that's what you like doing, making things happen. And I think you're very right, Woody. I believe in life, right? Say yes and work it out later because life's more interesting when you say yes, right? And sometimes it gets you into something you don't want to be involved in, but generally you've got more experiences when you say yes to things.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I always use the Richard Branson quote where he says, if you get the opportunity, just say yes and work out how to do it as you're going along. And I've sort of made some of those decisions. And do you know what? It's not worked out too bad. I've had to, I've had my PhD in bullshit sort of thing sometimes, but things got, do you know what, JP?
That's holding the dressing room, Mark, for 20 years, the PhD in bullshit.
It is, but there's that many... There's that many people that you actually find out who have been in, like, say, for example, I'm in construction industry now, who have been in it for like 30 years and they haven't done much self-development. They've literally just rested on the laurels and they're actually just winging the job. Yeah. And you go into these people with 30 years experience and they're going, I don't know. You're like, shit, I've got to research it myself. Surely you should know. But there's that many people who wing it in life. But it is, mate. It's great to see that you're doing all this stuff away from rugby, and it resonates with me. I would say it's only within the last 12 months where I don't identify as a rugby player because in my head, coming away from rugby, I was sort of, well, that's the only thing I've got a passion for. That's the only thing I was ever going to excel at. Yeah, I sort of didn't have that faith and belief in myself that I would achieve things away from rugby. Did you ever have any of that?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's that fear of the unknown, right? And most people get to our age when they retire at our age, and then they become experts at the business and spend 20 years in that business. We become an expert at what we can do in our mid-late 30s, and then we're not allowed to do it anymore. And I think it's about not being frightened of failing or not frightened of things not working out properly as long as you learn from it. And I think a lot of rugby players, if they're listening, they've got to realise that the rugby league is an environment that teaches some great skills to use outside work. So, for example, this is one I've been thinking about a lot is COVID really impacted my business, right? But I innovated, right? And I've come through the other side of it in a far better shape. But that ability to innovate comes from within a game, because you think how many times you in a game and the game plan's not working and you're trying to work out how to win and things are going against you. And it's that relentless process of doing that week in, week in, for all players, means that you're adaptable and you've got a bit of resilience and you've got ability to understand about a pivot and go, right, well, this needs to change and do something different. And I think the more rugby players, well, when they retire, can see that and understand that, be better. They feel more confident knowing that the game has taught them some life skills that they may not recognise now, but you're certainly recognising them now, Woody, 6 years later.
Yeah, do you know what? We had Steve McCormack on last week, and we was talking about player transition into the working world, and I was saying that, like, when I've been involved in the construction side now, and people are saying, oh, there's loads of detail in this, and you've got to get everything bang on, and I look at them and I say, mate, do you know in rugby, you're working to a split second. You're looking at if someone tackles with the left shoulder more than the right shoulder. Yeah. I said, it doesn't get any more detailed than that. Yeah. I said, so when you want to talk about specifics and being so detailed and precise about something, don't feel like I'm not going to know what I'm doing, because I'm used to it with rugby. Yeah. There's that many, but it's just a different industry, but it's the same principles of having that, like you say, the resilience to adapt, look at things in detail and be very precise about stuff. That transfers over into any industry if you want to apply it.
Yeah, for sure. 100% it does. And I think just people retiring need to realise that, they need to spend some time, and as they get towards the end of the career, maybe think about what rugby's taught them and how they can apply it in what they're doing, and they'll end up being successful from it because of that.
What do you think is going to be a big key to like player transition if you was involved now, because Luke, there's sort of like a bit of a pandemic in terms of professional rugby league players now, sort of seeking help for, there's drug addiction and, alcoholism and et cetera and stuff. And what can we do to sort of better prepare players? Or do you think the onus is, do you know what, they've got to want to do it themselves type of thing?
There's a bit of both, right? There's a bit, you can take the horse, as Bluey said, Brian McLean said, you can take the horse to water, you can't make it drink, and or not drink in terms of alcoholism. But I just think there's a couple of things. I would start when they first sign up about getting them to move away from seeing themselves just as a rugby player and understanding them more than a rugby player. Then I'd work on start beginning to show them, what rugby's going to teach them as they get older and learn those character skills. And then as they get older, they need to learn a technical trade. Like you're into the building trades now. Someone like Illy, what's Illy do? Plumbing, right? And maybe they need to realise they've going to have to do that, but then also work out how their character skills can help them in life as well. They're the kind of three things that stand out for me, Woody.
Yeah, and I think we was again speaking about it last week. I think like having an experience in that industry, because to use that quote what Phil Clark said there, you don't know what you're going to be good at. So for me, I think a big part of a rugby player's development and training and transition would be to actually experience that work. But that's going to take a level of dedication that sometimes the players are going to have to finish training and maybe go working for 3 or 4 hours in an industry just to see what they're going to actually enjoy.
Well, they should do it where, I don't know what the protocol is now, but maybe you have that on a Tuesdays. Every Tuesday, every Tuesday is a player day off, but you go in the morning and go work somewhere or do something, but it's compulsory.
So just tell us a little bit about your white flag program and your 30-day wellbeing. What was your thought process to putting those in? Because, well, at the end of the day, mate, do you know what? I will say this. I see a lot of people on LinkedIn and social media telling everyone that the motivational speakers and the business coaches and the this and the that. And fucking, I don't know what they've done to give themselves that title, but when I see you delivering these programs, you've lived it, you've breathed it, and you're doing it.
Yeah, cheers, Woody. I just try to be authentic, right? That's the thing about what I do. And the well-being just come about is that I got into doing this in 2016, designed a program for school kids around, believing in themselves, because a lot of school kids don't believe in themselves. just trying to eat more healthily, sleep better, and be more physically active. Because I got my own kids, and I can see what I go in a lot of schools, and I thought these 4 principles anybody can do, right? Anyone can do this. Anyone can believe in themselves, sleep a bit better, be more physically active, eat healthily, and then obviously with the lockdown then happening, and I thought more and more to do with well-being, and because of lockdown, what kind of happens is your brain, right, likes things to be certain, right? It likes to understand things, it likes routine. But lockdown, COVID, something that's not happened for 100 years, stresses people out because you don't know what's happening. But the people who deal best with stress are the people who have got a good mindset, got good sleeping routines, you're like physically active, you look after yourself, you eat healthily. So what I decided to do was, I've been thinking about it, then I was running Woody, and like the idea come in my head, like I know how to. Behavioural change comes from small habits done consistently. We know that from playing and training, don't we? We pick up at skills, become fitter, but not overnight, but by just practicing something day in, day out. And I thought, what I want to do is just cut through there's loads of information out there and just make something simple that everybody can do. And if you do it for 30 days, you'll feel a lot better at the other side of it. So that was how it happened. Then the program come about for it. And then, and it's just kind of, that's me. Like, I think that there's a lot of people stressed out there, but because they don't know what to do with their well-being. Well, this is just a simple way to improve your well-being, and it's proven it's working. And I'm glad it's doing that and making a difference to some people. We delivered it to give 3,000 free school places away to students for the well-being, and then I'm doing some work with the homeless as well with it. So it's about giving a bit back as well. Would 100%? When you're in our position, you should do a bit like that. So yeah, that's where it's from, mate.
Yeah, giving back. What would you say what's your biggest values then now as coming away from rugby? And because I notice a lot of the stuff that you do is giving back. I don't know if you realise that, but you tend to be you're trying to help people, you want to improve people's lives, and it's I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, cheers, Woody. I was thinking about that the other day, and then I realised, you know what? I just do it naturally without even thinking about it. But for me, what I stand for really is I always try and do what I'm going to say I'm going to do, right? If I'm saying I'm going to do something, I'll do it. I'll get there in the end, but I'll do it. I like to work hard. I like to do the morally right thing, for me, which I think is the right thing. And for me, I think it's about giving a shit about people. You've got to care about people, whether the people in your vicinity who are close to you or people outside it. And I think for me, I've always wanted to try up out the little guy. So I tell a story, maybe when I was 9, mate, and there was, and I think this is intrinsic to me. When I was 9 years old, I saw all the Ethiopians, starving because of famine in the 80s, right? And I said to my mum, I want to do something to raise some money. I'm going to go for a fun run. I'm going to, do a fun run, raise some money. And she went, okay. And I went, I'm going to go run 3 mile. And she went, yeah, you can't run 3 mile. You're like 9 years old. I went, well, I can run 3 mile. And she went, yeah, but you're not allowed off the street. So I went, all right, then I'll run around the street 50 times. So I run around the street 50 times as a kid and raised about £30 for Ethiopia. So for me, that story, when I think back now, makes me realise that it's part of who I am, that I want to help out somebody who's not in as good a position as me. That's it.
Do you know what? I do this quite a bit now, and I'm trying to I listen to Jordan Peterson quite a lot.
Right, yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out my core values and the person that I am. And I look back at experiences in my life to see why I do certain characteristics, today. And I don't think a lot of people understand how experiences from your childhood reflect your behaviour even to today. Carry that through.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's someone I respect a great deal called Paul Sewell. He's been really good to me since I've finished playing, and he's like the Hull's version of Richard Branson, right? And he said he was away on a cruise, and there was this, got talking to someone, he ended to be one of the biggest psychologists in the world, world renowned, and he kind of said your childhood impact has such a bearing on your personality. you know. So, and I think that's another good reason why I kind of do this well-being stuff, because if you can get some habits as a child, then it gives them a better chance for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, 100%. So last one before we go, JP, but we talked a lot about, you know, the positive impact that you're having on, you know, not just yourself, but on other people. But what are the things that you're looking to work on now? What would you see as some of your weaknesses that you're trying to develop as a person?
My weakness is that I probably, like, I struggle with detail. You know, I had to be detailed in rugby league for game plans, but I have to work really hard on that. And just being patient, I have to work really hard on being patient, being detailed and being patient. And my two, like, Achilles heels and the stuff I've become a lot better at over the last kind of 5 or so years, but it's always a work in progress. And when I'm tired, I'm at my worst. So generally when I'm normal, like I said today, I'm pretty patient and pretty detailed, but as I get tired through work and get a bit stressed out, I revert back to type. And for me, it's about being able to keep working on, so when I am stressed, I don't revert back to, don't care about detail, I just make decisions. So that's kind of my working area.
Yeah, I think, do you know what? I completely identify with the patience thing. I think as a rugby player, you know, you generally don't have to be patient about a lot of stuff in life, because financially a lot of people have to be patient and save up for months to buy things. As a rugby player, you're blessed, so you can buy things quite quickly. You don't have to wait that much. And also, you've on a week-to-week thing, so if you're pissed off with something, generally within the next 5 or 7 days, you never seem that like you're waiting too much. But you know, I always say it's the real world that I'm involved in now, because rugby was like a bubble looking back. You know, patience is a massive thing for me, especially learning something new, because I want to have 20 years experience in space of 2 weeks, and I know it doesn't fucking happen like that.
Yeah, it is. It's a big thing, and it's like, if you've got it front of mind and you're self-aware about it, you'll change it, you'll improve it.
Yeah, and I was listening to someone the other day, and they actually said if you was to dedicate an hour of your life for the next 5 years into something, you'd be an expert at it. And I thought, you know what, it's not a lot of time, is it? 1 hour a day. Just to focus on something. Even if you do it over the next couple of years, you're going to be pretty damn good at it. So, you know, mate, I appreciate you coming on. It's been fantastic. Like I say, mate, it's complete inspiration, not just for myself. I know a lot of players looked up to you on the field and off the field, and what you're doing now is certainly inspirational. I'm sure that in 20 years' time, there'll be kids who's saying that you've been one of the biggest inspirations in their life with things that you're putting together, mate. So it's so positive, and it's you know, a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks, Woody. I really appreciate you saying that. It's really good to hear that. And I've loved being on here, mate. It's been brilliant. It's great that you're doing something like this, Woody. And I can really see how you're into it now. You know what I mean? Like, you're into trying to learn and improving. And I think what's great, just speaking earlier, it's just how your business is succeeding. That's awesome to hear that. I love hearing about when rugby lads are finished and they're beginning to do well and they've found a way to do well. There's nothing. It makes me feel really happy when I see that. Do you know that? You know, I see the lads doing well like that. So good on you, mate. Well done, mate.
Yeah, likewise, mate. You know, it is. I keep a close eye on people on LinkedIn and the profiles and what they're doing, and it's great to see rugby players, you know, succeed and use the talents that they've got into something else. And like I said, mate, you're striving, you know, and you're no different in your new life as you was in your rugby. So, mate, I appreciate you coming on, and we'll catch up soon.
Yeah, pleasure, Woody. You enjoy your hotel room, mate, wherever you're at.
I'm just going to go and get the corgi leg press out now.
Go on.
Appreciate that, JP. It was awesome.